Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Badmouth. Please be joined by Candy, JB, and George. How is
All right.
everybody doing?
All right, man.
All right.
Doing
Well, you know
good.
what, Joshua Door, I like the fact that we're starting at 9:04, but I didn't know if you actually referenced that to the Jacksonville area code, which is also 9:04. So I didn't know if you realized you got some unexpected knowledge that you just got just a moment ago. But nevertheless, it is what it is. Topics for tonight. All you need to do is look at the title, talking about Miami Hurricanes standout wide receiver Xavier Restrepo. We're going to talk about Dick Enberg. Wonder why we're going to talk about Dick Enberg? Stay tuned. I don't think Candy's going to like that segment at all. Going to talk about Joel Embid. I'm sick and tired of talking about this guy, but we got to do what we got to do. NFL points leaders. And last but not least, Charles Barkley, and maybe a few minutes for parting shots at the very end. With that said, let's get this going because the natives are restless. We got Blows, we got Joshua Door, and we have my insanity, okay, that needs to be sane. Otherwise, I'll never keep up with these guys, but love the energy in the chat room nevertheless. All right, well, let's talk about our top storyline of the night. The connection with Cam Ward and coached by Mario Crispo. Yes, you guessed it. I'm talking Xavier Restrepo. This season, 51 receptions, 856 yards, 9 touchdowns. His career numbers are 182 receptions for 2,573 yards. He's first all time with the Miami Hurricanes. And you know what? This guy's got 19 TDs to go along with it. Great kid. And yes, as Joshua Door made reference, I have a great relationship with this guy. He really is a good kid. So, JB, I only have some good advice for you. Watch out for this kid when he's in Indy. And I expect you to get an interview of your own with this guy, or at least get a question. And of course, I get the pro day. Fair enough? So,
Sounds
let's
like
leave
a
it.
plan.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with JB Ellis. Some thoughts about Xavier Restrepo. What do you know about this guy? And after we get done, we have a soundbite that we're going to play from Saturday's game. Go ahead, Joe.
He just is special. Some players just have it, and he just displays his skills. I mean, he has a great relationship with Cam Ward. He goes out there every week, and he just he bowls. You know, he's a valuable asset to the team. He's one of the leaders out there, and he just does his thing every week. You gotta love what he does.
Very personable guy. I remember at the Miami Pro Day, I wasn't able to get any interviews there, but Xavier Restrepo was standing right out there, and I said, "Hey, you got a few minutes next?" Sure, no problem. We got 6, 7 minutes. Candy, how many views did we get? Over 2,000 views on that 6, 7 minute interview. That's a
Yep.
lot. Boy, let me tell you something. It taught me a lot about what we put up there and how short these things have to be to cater to attention span. But Xavier Restrepo was a class act. All right, George.
Yeah, I mean, look at his numbers this year. He had 163 yards in against Cal, and then against Duke, 146 yards receiving. I mean, just incredible. And his numbers from last year too. He ended the year with almost 1,100 yards rushing. I'm sorry, receiving. Excuse me. And but he's already got 9 touchdowns this year. Last year he had 6 all total. Just a great combination with him and Ward, and he's doing a great job. And boy, his stock is rising. His stock is rising every week. And every win that Miami, the Hurricanes, and you guys are covering them, you see him all the time. But yeah, I mean, I'm hearing great things about this kid, and obviously the numbers still show, but it goes beyond numbers. Like you're saying, he's a good interview. He's a good person to talk to, and he's got his head on his shoulders in the right way. And then, like I said, with Cam Ward doing the tossing and him doing the receiving, they got a great 1-2 punch right down there. They really do.
Mario Crispo loves the guy, and I'm going to tell you one thing about him. He's valuable on special teams. He does stuff with punt returns for sure. And I'll tell you one thing about him. He's been injured a little bit the last few years. Otherwise, his numbers would be far greater. But there's nobody that's seen him more than I have, or as much as, except Candy Ebling. Go ahead, Candy.
Restrepo attended St. Thomas Aquinas High School in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, before transferring to Deerfield Beach High School in Deerfield Beach. Now, if anybody knows anything, Deerfield Beach produces a lot of football greats. During his high school career, he had 48 total touchdowns, 3,000 receiving yards, 2,500 rushing yards, and 8 interceptions. He came to Miami back in 2020. He played 9 games his true freshman year. He had 1 reception for 12 yards. He is now up to, he has taken the all-time lead for yards for University of Miami. That says a lot, knowing how many people have played for Miami.
Hey, Pensman, how you doing? Glad to have you on. Yes, Josh, he definitely is local. So with that said, let's go ahead and put a clip in there. I asked him a question on Saturday about his record-breaking night with an incredible team that he has. Go ahead. We'll talk. Let's X can take over and give me a break. Actually, you've been through the ups and downs with the program, and now you have an opportunity to get that accomplishment, and yet the team is still undefeated. How does it feel? Does it magnify the accomplishment that the team is still undefeated and you have a lot of growth to go for the rest of the year?
I think the most important thing is that we're undefeated. I mean, yeah, I got hurt, 2022. That held me back a little bit, but I think the most important thing right now is team success. Without any of the team success, none of this would matter at all, So I think us just going 1-0 each and every single week, I think that's the utmost important thing.
I'm sure you're. All right, so there you go. I asked him this question during our post-game media availability. And again, as Joshua Torres alluded to a couple of times here, yes, I do have a good relationship. But the biggest thing you have to understand when you're covering games is, I remember this during the Bad Boys era covering the NBA, is I had good relationships with James Edwards, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman as well. So the way I look at it is there's some players you can always go to. They're always going to be there for you. But Xavier Restrepo is just a special guy. He really is. And whatever team lands him, okay, he hasn't had the greatest quarterback play here at Miami. Was it Tyler Van Dyke last year, Candy, that he's had? So he's played with some subpar quarterback. This kid is just one of those kids that is a very humble human being, is what he is. And I'm going to tell you something, Joe, just you watch when he goes over to the NFL scouting combine. I'll guarantee, now that you've got a little bit of a sneak preview of what he's all about, we expect some big things out of you, Mr. Ellis, because I'm going to tell you, you never know if he's going to be playing for some of the teams that you might be connected with.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
Yeah, he's a great kid, and everybody loves him. But I think that's interesting, and I've asked him this question, and we've played it on previous shows, that, him and Cam Ward work very hard together is what they really, really do. And that's why their chemistry is as good as it is. So let's go on to another subject, one that Candy Ebling will not like. But you know what? I don't make these things up. They just happen before our eyes. And as the late Dick Enberg would say, oh my, what has happened to the Milwaukee Bucks? My goodness. 1-6, 143% last in the East. They have a 6-game losing streak in the Central Division. So are we going to call this the curse of Adrian Griffin, who's 30-13 after 43 games, or Mike Budenholzer, who's 6-1 in the Pacific Division at 57% in first place for the Phoenix Suns, because Doc Rivers right now is 18-25, and he's trying to reassure fans that they'll get into playoffs. But my goodness, Adrian Griffin must be laughing as hard as he can. But we got to start off with Candy. I mean, I tried to go ahead and wait on this topic, thinking that the Bucks could straighten it out, but at some point you just have to come to the reality that the Bucks aren't that good.
So they're also without Chris Middleton, who had surgery over the off season, and he has not played a game yet. He is still recovering. Brooke Lopez is having a lights out defensive year, but he is in what you would call a big slump shooting wise. I think he's 10 of 35 around the 3-point arc. So is it a coaching thing? Partly. I think the guys aren't gelling together. I think they just haven't found a rhythm. The last 2 games, they've lost the 2 games by a total of 3 points combined. So it's not like they're getting blown out. There have been some blowouts, don't get me wrong. Giannis isn't 100% either. He stayed out of a game or 2 because he's having some soreness. Do you see that? Yes. Do you see it very often? Probably not Are they the Celtics? No. You know, they just don't, they're not built that way. They don't have the depth either. But is it Doc Rivers? It partly could be. We've all said that, you know, when they let Adrian Griffin go, should they have let him go? Should they have let Mike Budenholzer go? No. But they did. And so they've got to live with the mistakes that they've made. And the only thing I would put out there is if we think it's time for a coaching change, what coach out there would do better? Do we think would do better? That's my
I don't have the answer. All right, Joe, you're not that far away. You're about an hour away out in the Midwest. So what's your take on the downfall of the Milwaukee Bucks?
I don't think it's anything to be worried about. I mean, if you look at their schedule, they lost to Cleveland, who's 8-0 twice. So take those away, you're 1-4. They got one of a 3-game road trip, 3 games in 4 nights. They lost all 3. Take that away, you're 1-1. The other loss was to the Bulls. That's not a very good loss. But they're 1-6. They went out Middleton. Giannis isn't fully healthy. It's the NBA. There's 82 games. We're not going to worry at 1-6. The Bucks are a good team. Are they going to win the championship? No, but they'll be in the playoffs. They have plenty of talent. They'll be fine. You know, you just got to take it what it is. It's just a bad start to the season. They have a good coach. I don't think he should be the coach when he got hired, but he's there now. He'll be fine. Giannis will be good. They got Lillard. Middleton will eventually come back. They'll be in the playoffs. I wouldn't even worry about this. This is just something for us to talk about at this time of year with the NBA because it's November. There's not much really to talk about in the NBA.
Well, wait till you stay a little later in the show. There might be, but maybe this topic probably is a little bit early to talk about. The only reason I brought it up, though, just so you guys know, is I'm only comparing actually the coaching firing of Adrian Griffin versus Doc Rivers because I think Adrian Griffin got a raw deal here. He really did. He should have had more than 43 games to coach his team. That's my opinion. So, but you're right. Yeah, we know the NBA. If it were up to me, the NBA wouldn't start probably until Christmas night. But that's another day for another time. But that's when they should really start it. All right, I'll turn it over to Eichhorn and see what he's got left to say about this.
Well, I would have never guessed that Milwaukee had a worse record than our Detroit Pistons, who have come on in the last few games and are up to 3 wins now. Yeah, with Middleton out, obviously that's a big blow for the scoring, for the Bucks scoring, obviously. So I lean towards JB's opinion, really. It's a long season. Yeah, it doesn't look pretty. It's not pretty when you're 1-6. They have had some tough opponents, like you mentioned, Cleveland a couple times, Boston. But I think that Giannis seems to be playing very, very well. And, of course, Lillard is playing very well. Obviously, the shooting and the rebounding is lacking right now also, accuracy, because, Middleton's not there. Chris is a real good player. They have to, this whole thing with Doc Rivers is fishy. I didn't like it either when they first hired him. I really didn't. I mean, the guy's bounced around from all different teams around the NBA for so many years. And but you got them right now. I don't think they're going to change coaches unless the bottom does completely fall out, which I don't think it will. But there's still a lot of time. It's a long season, as you mentioned, Joe. And I think that the Bucks still have a darn good team and a very good chance to win the division.
Well, Blake Lowe's is requesting a station break, and guess what? You know what? We're going to give it to you. All right, Candy, take a station break.
The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. The foreword is written by George Eichhorn. It talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the media business. New school, new media versus old media. South Florida Tribune also has a website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find a link to that book. You can find a link to our merchandise store. You can also find Scott's writings, George's writings, JB's written, and I take pictures, believe it or not. Go check out the website. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights, it's baseball. Tuesday nights, it's football. Wednesday nights, it's here, Sports Exchange. Thursday nights, Fire Up Florida. It's approximately 7:30, talks about hockey. And then approximately at 9 p.m., Fire Up. Back to you, Scott.
Well, we expect Joshua Dorr to definitely be on tomorrow night's show because I know the Panthers are taking on the Predators. The Florida Panthers did have an impressive trip out to Finland and where they will beat the Dallas Stars 2 games. So they did a really good job there out there. But yeah, Joshua Dorr, I know you do your best to contribute in the chat room and much of it is appreciated. You're not being silenced, but the reality of the situation is, you know what? Tomorrow night we're going to have a loaded hockey show. With that said,
Well,
you know what, Joe?
Scott, there's a question here for you in the chat.
Okay.
Why did you choose those colors for the book cover?
I had a book coach actually choose them for me is what I did. Good question though. So I had this first book done by a book coach who did the editing. You know, when you self-publish a lot of times, you learn a lot. The next book will be a lot different situation. I don't know what we're going to do with the front cover, but I'm already starting to go ahead and line up some ideas. In fact, you know what? While I'm on that subject, Candy, I want to talk about a guest that I went ahead. Well, they do look like Miami Hurricane colors. Good observation, Blows. It really is. So I want to go ahead, Candy, put that one cover up that I had the opportunity this week to talk to Kenny Albert. And Kenny Albert's one of the classiest people I've ever seen. A mic for all seasons, my 3 decades announcing the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, and the Olympics. You can find that book. Okay. Google it up. It's a great book. And more importantly, Kenny and I got to know each other at the NHL All-Star game in Tampa. And then we were able to go ahead and reconnect over the summer. He's a really super nice guy. But the idea is I'm going to spend more time when things slow down a little bit. But I can tell you right now, he learned from his dad, Marv, who's an incredible individual. And you never know, there might be some great ideas that I'll have to incorporate in Lessons from the Microphone Part 2. Thanks, Benjamin. So I just wanted to put that in there while I had the opportunity to do it. So, all right. With that said, okay, the NBA, Joe, maybe you're just lucky enough to catch a couple of topics that'll get you interested. Because if this one doesn't get you at least somewhat fired up, a little emotion, just a little bit, okay. Joe, it's JB, okay, Joshua Dorr, okay, but I can call him by a different name. For you, it's JB, okay. Just remember that. Joel Embid didn't need load management this time as the NBA suspended him 3 games for shoving a columnist media member in the locker room Saturday night. So you know what, JB? What would happen if Joel Embid shoved you and pushed you around? What would you do to this guy?
So I wouldn't do anything because getting into the locker room is hard enough, and I know that the NBA would take care of it. And hopefully I'd fall and hit my elbow, my knee or something, because then I'd be a multimillionaire. But Joel Embiid, this has got to be one of the dumbest things in the world to do. You're a professional athlete. You know, I get that the story, the guy said something about his brother. I read this late last week. I didn't think it was anything that offensive. But, you know, part of being a professional athlete is dealing with the media. Now, the teams, the union, and you know, from college, they have this where they've learned to deal with the media. You have to, as a professional that earns money doing this, control yourself. Not everything's going to be positive. Not everything's going to be flowers and rainbows and unicorns. People are going to come at you. Everyone has their own agenda. You know, when I'm writing a story, I want what's best for my website. It may not be positive. If I'm writing about the Yankees and it happens to do with Garrett Cole, I guarantee it'll be negative. I'll never have anything positive to say about the guy until I meet him, and maybe he can win me over. But before that, it'll definitely be negative. It's just the way it's going to be. And I don't think he's going to come and push me because he's a professional. Joel Embiid, you got to do better. That's just ridiculous, and there's no place for that in sports.
Okay, I'm going to respond to a couple of questions in the chat room. Joshua asked me, what if Joel shoved me? I would take the same route that JB says. I hope he pushes me hard enough so I can sue him. Oh, I'd love to be able to take a piece of his And I mean, come on, Joshua, assault and battery. You ever heard of it? It could cost you a lot of different things. People see that he shoved me. I got witnesses, Joshua, So, yeah, I would go ahead. Why would I knock his, what out? Number one, he's way taller than I am. Anyways, I couldn't even reach the guy. And as for, I mean, you'd need a ladder to even get a shot right at his jaw. I got to tell you guys a funny story, though. Many years ago when I was covering the NBA, I sat next to Rick Smits of the Indiana Pacers. And I'll never forget, Rick's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in the Indiana Pacers. I had to take my tape recorder, and my arm was so stretched out to get him to talk into the tape recorder. He's only 7'7" or so. So you need a ladder to talk to some of these guys. But to answer your question, no, I wouldn't knock his, what out. But I would sue him, and it would be bad move. Pensman, great question. You know what? James Franklin, to me, is an overrated coach. He really is. I don't care what anybody says. But, we'll see how long Penn State keeps them around. I've always thought, are they pretenders or contenders? They haven't been a contender since they've been in the Big Ten, dating back to Joe Paterno. James Franklin is overrated. When he starts playing teams, that's when he starts to lose. All right, we'll continue the question to George, okay? Joel Embid, you and I have both been in the locker room. How do you handle this situation about shoving a columnist or media member or whatever?
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation. You just really can't respond physically. I would never do that at all. We had our own ups and downs, as we know, with the bad boys and getting interviews in the Pistons locker room, but nothing like this before. Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer. I mean, that was a interesting combination of players that were on that team. But Joe Dumars on that team also. And Joe, of course, is the NBA's executive VP of basketball operations. And, I think he picked his words wisely, and I'm sure the NBA obviously reviewed. He said mutual respect is paramount to the relationship between players and the media in the NBA. And that is so true. The beat writers that are there game after game, or even a columnist that's there once a week, everybody's got to have a mutual respect. Their job's not easy. And by that, I mean the writers. They're constantly trying to come up with a new angle. They're trying to come up with reasons why obviously somebody is not playing well, or somebody is dogging it, or maintenance issues, or whatever the heck's going on in some of these players' situations. But I tell you what, I mean, he deserved it. From what I hear, he deserved it. Not saying that the columnist is obviously free of anything. No. Especially when you start talking about personal things, brother, family, whatever, you got to stay clear of that stuff. So all I'm saying is that he deserved a suspension, but no, I would back away from anything and not try to throw any kind of bad stuff or throw a punch or anything like that. That's not me.
Hey, JB, Troy Gary says, good to see you, JB. Nice to have you back, Troy. Good stuff. And I did want to put a story out there now that you brought up, this situation about Rodman and Laimbeer. I never got along with Bill Laimbeer. Then again, nobody ever did. That's why he never got a head coaching job in the first place. But I had a situation with Laimbeer. Wasn't physical, but he was getting on my nerves and being a little bit getting on my nerves, to say the least. And I said to Bill Laimbeer, get this, okay? Just because you can afford your car payment doesn't mean I can afford mine. You got it? So Dennis Rodman and I had a good working relationship. We really did. And Dennis says, I'll take care of it. Get out of here. I'm talking to the guy. Leave it alone. Okay. And Dennis Rodman hasn't always been crazy. There was a time that he was a pretty down-to-earth family man. Later on, I can't worry about it. But my memories of Dennis Rodman are nothing more than just positive is what they are. In fact, now that I have the opportunity to talk about this, since I'm on Dennis Rodman, I'll never forget the time when we're in a West Bloomfield bowling alley, and he's looking at my bowling style like, man, that's the weirdest form I've ever seen. So, well, with all due respect, he's really not totally wrong. I did once upon a time win a trophy for a most unusual form. So Dennis wasn't that far off base. I said, well, Dennis, because we're friends, it's one of those deals. He says to me, well, your free throw shooting isn't overly the greatest either. So, but he smiled. He was really, really nice about it. So he beat me the first game. He said, Dennis, you know what? Let's just do this, okay? Winner take all. If I win the next game, you got to pay for both games, and if I do, I have to pay for both games. You got a bunch of splits in that situation, okay? And I ended up beating him the second game with my most unusual form. Bottom line is as I mentioned in my book, Lessons from the Microphone, okay, relationships, people. That's what this is all about. Dennis and I had a good working relationship. We talked earlier in the show about Xavier Restrepo, and if you can find friends in certain places, that makes life a lot easier. Okay. So with that said, we'll turn over to Candy. What are your thoughts about Joel Embiid?
Embiid was upset with Philadelphia Inquirer's Marcus Hayes for a story that questioned the star's professionalism and referenced his son and late brother who died in a car accident. Since initially publishing the article, the Inquirer has removed the paragraph mentioning Embiid's son and brother. Embiid spotted Hayes in the locker room after Saturday's loss and had a heated exchange with the columnist. The former MVP told Hayes he could write about him as a basketball player, but never mention his family in the article. The next time you bring up my dead brother and my son again, you are going to see what I'm going to do to you. And I'm going to have to blank, 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 live with the consequences. Well, now he's living with the consequences of his actions. It's never okay to get physical with somebody like that over something somebody writes. But in the same point, obviously the Inquirer thought what they did wasn't right by publishing it because they've removed it as well. Right. So two wrongs don't make a right, and obviously the Inquirer has gotten all kinds of publicity now. Look at that. We're talking about it. Everybody's been talking about it. Embiid's even been, taking it to the next level. It's sad that it's gotten to this point that we have to talk about somebody's dead brother. I'm sorry. This is a basketball star. He plays a basketball game. What happened to his son or his brother has nothing to do with the game that you were reporting on. So was the reporter wrong? Yes. But are they trying to sell? Of course. Everybody's trying to sell. They're a media outlet trying to make money and sell, papers or get clicks on a website. Was he wrong? Yes. But Embiid, he was definitely wrong. You cannot take it to the next level and touch somebody.
Well, the Philadelphia media has been known to cross the line a few times. Let's take back, and George and I, maybe JB, that Steve Carlton wouldn't talk to the media after they went out there and posted some stuff that he really disagreed with. So he did. And I remember covering the Phillies during spring training over at the old Jack Russell Stadium, and the Philadelphia Phillies, they were down on Von Hayes, and I ended up listening to that. I actually decided to do a story on Von Hayes after that whole situation. He agreed to do it. So, they've been known to ruffle some feathers out in Philadelphia. But, yeah, there's no place to go out there and talk about anything other than basketball. So I'm not totally excusing Philadelphia media for what they're doing, but I don't believe that you need to go to the extreme by pushing a media member around, because without us, we're not promoting what you do for a living. All right, let's move on to the National Football League, the only NFL topic we're going to do unless somebody decides to do it through parting shots. Okay, the NFL points leader. Are there any surprises? I'll give you the teams. Baltimore is number one with 283. Washington, 263. Buffalo, 260. Tampa Bay, 259. And the Lions, 258. We'll start off with you, Candy. Any surprises with this list?
I think all of us are a little surprised that the Commanders are doing as well as they are this year. I don't think anybody predicted them to do that well. I'm kind of surprised Tampa Bay's up there as well. But, you didn't hear, I don't think I heard Kansas City on there. Wait, really? Detroit's having a really good year, obviously. Jared Goff is having the season of his career. I mean, the best season yet. And Baltimore is, they've got such a massive running game that
Candy, I ask you a simple question. We don't need every fact in
Okay.
this situation.
Okay.
I love the facts that you provide. You are absolutely phenomenal. You are. I've never seen a crack statistician as good as you. But any surprises? And you said Washington. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Joe.
Definitely Washington. When Jaden Daniels got drafted second, I remember saying, "Oh crap, we have to face him twice a year." If anyone doesn't know, I'm a Giants fan. I knew that was going to be a problem. I knew he had talent. I didn't think he'd be this good this quickly, especially with the talent around him. I don't think it's as good as other teams, and he's really enhancing what he has. Baker Mayfield as well in Tampa. I think they're doing a great job. And obviously, the fact that Kansas City is nowhere in the top five, you know, with Mahomes as good as he is, Kelsey stepping up now that there's all the injuries. But prior to that, Kelsey had not been there. I mean, he was on Taylor Swift's tour, hanging out the first 5 weeks or so. So, I mean, I think those are the three that hit me right off the top of my head.
Okay, George.
Yeah, I mean, no question about it with Washington. I mean, they're just having a phenomenal year so far, but we'll see how that goes. And then I also got to agree. I mean, the two that are missing in my mind, obviously Kansas City and San Francisco. I mean, Brock Purdy is not having a sensational year so far. The team is doing far less than they probably ever were expected to do. So the fact that the 49ers are not in any list like that does surprise me because obviously they went to the Super Bowl last year and a lot of people had them penciled in this year. But it's a long season. I understand we're only in week 8 or 9 or whatever. But no, I agree. I think Washington is a big surprise for me. And then, of course, Kansas City not being there with Mahomes. But they're still winning. They're just not putting as many points on the board like they used to.
Well, let me say one thing. You know why Buffalo's at 260, don't you? Thanks to a 61-yard field goal by Tyler Bassett beat the Dolphins. So, I mean, 61 yards to beat the Dolphins. It seems like the Dolphins and the Bills, no disrespect to Miami, but the Dolphins ended up, it's not that they found a way to lose, but it was a tough break for them to lose to the Bills because of a 61-yard field goal. Yeah, there's no question that Washington is definitely a surprise. But let's face it, they found their quarterback of the future, and it looks like that quarterback is outperforming that guy in Chicago so far, Caleb Williams. I like Daniels. Again, Williams' situation is interesting to me because we don't even know what coach he's going to have next year. I know there's always been talk about Ben Johnson would have left Detroit to go to Chicago last year, but you never know. He might get it next year. But Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield has out there and reinvented himself and found himself a home where he's appreciated there. And the Lions, don't worry, they'll move up that list if they keep putting 20, 30, 40 points a game. These last few weeks have obviously they haven't put as many, but when they go to Houston this weekend, they could be moving up that list pretty quickly. Now, who knows? They might even surpass Baltimore or be number 2 on the list when it comes out next. Final topic of the night before we go to parting shots. And yes, we're going back to the NBA. Charles Barkley is concerned. I love putting Charles Barkley's comments. After all, if you go ahead and buy my book, listen to the microphone tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders, I have a picture with Sir Charles in there, available on Amazon and Kindle. So there you go, Penman. Yes, I have a picture of Sir Charles, and I'm enjoying his time at TNT. What a super nice guy. But Charles Barkley is concerned with players making too much money and not playing. We have guys making 80, 90, 100 million, not playing back-to-back games. Seriously? Really? Okay, Joe.
I mean, it's what we've been saying for the last, I don't know, almost decade at this point. Load management is a load of crap. That's what it is. These guys play at most 48 minutes 4 times per week. That's less than 4 hours, and that's at max. Usually it's 2 to 3 times per week, and they sit out games. And the season's 82 games, and if you make the playoffs, depending if you're LeBron, you're going to probably play another 23, 24 games. Otherwise, everybody else may play an additional 10 games tops in the playoffs, on average. So this sitting out, it's a joke. I want to call, any job in the world and say, listen, I worked yesterday, so I'm going to take today off, but I'll be back in 2 days when it's the next day to work. And then I'm going to take that next day off. And then, I'll work 3 days and I'll take a couple off because it's just too much. The world doesn't work that way. And they're not giving me $60 million to do what I do. So come on. Charles is 100% right.
He'll be a highly coveted, and he'll be highly coveted if he ever decides to leave TNT for sure, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I'll tell you my experience with Charles Barkley is great. You know what? I want to put this comment with Joshua Dorr up at the bottom. This is an excellent comment. Okay. NHL players play way more physical and don't take a day off. Joshua, what that comment is called? It's called a bullseye. Okay. No question about it. Hockey players certainly play more physical, don't take time off. And yet they're probably the only thing you're missing out of that, Joshua, is the fact that they're way underpaid compared to NBA players. But great one, Joshua. That's what we need from you. Okay. And he wants to call the NBA a bunch of sissies. You know what? Can't he put that one up? I think that, I don't know if I call it that, but I'm not disagreeing with what he put up there at all. All right. I'll turn over to George.
Well, it's hard to disagree with our friend Charles Barkley. I mean, he says it like it is. I mean, really. And I know he didn't make nearly that kind of money, obviously, playing because he was in a different era. But think for a second of the fans, okay? Detroit fans get one opportunity, one chance to see LeBron James come into this Little Caesars Arena. And this is what I'm getting at, is it's a slap in the face, especially for the fans, season ticket holders. They look forward to seeing these guys. Some of them, like I said, only make one trip in. And then you say, oh, well, that's a maintenance day for me. I'm not going to play against the Pistons. Oh, really? Okay. There's no recourse for the fans because you're only coming in once a year. And I understand they have to select the games, but still, I agree. It's a bunch of garbage. It really is. The fans are paying your salary, fella, and so are the TV networks and many other sponsors, etc. But these players that want to have a time off, and like you said, JB, I mean, you do the math, and this is ridiculous. The amount of time they play. Oh, yeah, I know they practice every day, but come on. We know practice isn't nose to the grindstone, real difficult for NBA players. I mean, you're doing sets and different things you're trying out, obviously, with the coaching staff, but you're not playing aggressive like you are in a game. I just think that he's spot on with this. Barkley's spot on, and I give him credit for saying it, but this is crazy. We've seen it already with too many stars sitting out too many games, Scott.
All right, Candy, why don't you put Blow's latest comment up there? I actually think it's okay. Scott, you got to agree. We say a lot of crazy stuff in the chat room. That's putting it mildly, but we do have some excellent comments here and there. That's true. The excellent ones get posted up here. Some of the other ones, people are watching this via video, so they can go out there and read into it themselves. All right, one opportunity, one time to shine. George is going M&M's. Go, George. One shot of a lifetime. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Some of them were pretty good. I enjoy putting them up. Don't get me wrong, Blows. Yeah. Every so often, a few more stand out than others. All right, Candy, take a shot at. Do you agree or disagree with Sir Charles?
Load management should be thrown out the window. MLB players. There are some players that played 162 games this past season. And you're talking there's only how many games in the NBA? Come on, really? We can't play? You're going to tell me you don't practice every single day in between. You're not talking about playing a game that you play for 4 hours. You're playing it. I mean, there's tennis matches that you have when you're in Wimbledon and those, and you're playing more often, and you're playing 5 hours at a time. Like, come on, really? You practice that long, you should be able to play that long. If you can't play every day, if you're injured, I get it. That's something else. But you are getting paid a lot of money to play a game. And like JB said, I can't say, you know what? I had too rough of a day yesterday. I'm not going to go in tomorrow. I had customers that cussed me out and yelled at me, and I need to take a mental day. I'm just going to take the day off. No, it doesn't work that way. I can't just say that. Yes, I get sick days. Yes, we all do, but that's a little different. These NBA players that do this load management, they get my goat. Because like George said, the ticket that you purchase to go to a game is not cheap. If a family decides, you know what, I really want to see this player, this team, I'm going to pay for a family of 4 to go to a game, and then they go and the game, the guy that they went there to see is sitting out because he needs a load management day. I feel bad for them. It just irks me because I won't make 89 million in my lifetime, much less in one season. And they feel entitled. And that's the problem with today's society, is people sometimes feel entitled. And here they're thinking they're entitled to a day off because, I played the last night or two. They don't play 7 days. They don't have games 7 days a week on their team. They have days off and scheduled already. They already have scheduled days off that are built into the schedule. Travel days. Come on, that's what your downtime is for. Not, you're supposed to be playing this game and I'm going to take this game off because I need load management. No, that's a bunch of BS.
All right, Jamie, I'm going to put an interesting comment up. You don't have to ask the food part, answer the question for Jamie. What does the big stand for? And what was
Brian.
there? You know, huh?
Brian and a roast.
Okay. There you go. All right. Is it spelled B-R-I or B-R-Y?
B-R-I.
Okay. There you go, Joshua. Yes. And you didn't mind going out there and saying roast. At least he didn't roast you. Just kidding, Joshua.
And in case you don't know this, I'm George Brian Eichhorn. So congratulations.
See?
There you go. So yeah, funny. We got 3 Brians in the house.
I knew I liked you. Yeah, Brian's are in the house.
Yeah, right. I think George, yours is spelled with an I-A-N too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
Good
Good stuff. All right. So Joshua, you put one of those interesting questions that I didn't mind, and you got 2 answers out of it. You should go out there and give your wife Rebecca a hug. That you got something different. Totally there. My middle name, Joshua, is easy. Okay, Brian with a Y. So that was easy. You got 3 Brians in the house, and then Candy. Well, she's the only one that doesn't have a B for the middle name, but that's a different story. Knowing you, you'll start asking that question. So, Penman has a question for you, George. Who do you think the Lions? Do you think the Lions?
There's a chance, obviously. A good, some people think a better chance than not. So we'll see. It's a long season, but they're off to a hell of a start, 7-1. So Detroit's got its fingers crossed right now that they make it.
All right, let's go to blows. This one's interesting. Basketball worse than baseball. Well, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist. But you know what, blows? I'm going to go ahead and elaborate a little bit on it. We don't have a designated basketball show, so the only time I get a basketball topic in there is usually on the Sports Exchange, and George, JB, and Candy are troopers by answering some of these questions. Baseball and football are the only designated sports shows we have, in addition to hockey, which, by the way, is tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So with that said, okay, we do have time for parting shots. All right, Joshua, you're determined to get a hockey thing in. George,
yes.
You think the Red Wings will make the playoffs?
Yes, yes. They missed it by just the eyelash last year. They will make it.
Okay. All right, we do have time for parting shots. Candy, lead off.
Congratulations, Milwaukee Brewers Senior Vice President and General Manager Matt Arnold was named MLB's Executive of the Year for 2024 on Monday. Arnold is the first Brewers executive to win the award, which was established in 2018. The award was voted on by executives from all 30 teams before the start of the playoffs. The Brewers were written off in many corners after Arnold traded ace Corbin Burns to the Baltimore Orioles. The trade came a few months after longtime manager Craig Counsell bolted to the division rival Cubs as a free agent, but the team Arnold constructed defied expectations, going 93-69, a 1-win improvement on 2023's, to win the franchise's 7th division title and 3rd NL Central crown in 4 seasons. The team's success in 2024 was largely due to players Arnold acquired last winter, as well as during the season. Third baseman Joey Ortiz, Jackson Churio, Rise Hoskins, Brian Hudson, Jared Koenig, and our all-star closer Devin Williams missing 4 months with a back injury. So kudos to Arnold for winning. He's 45 years old.
George?
Mine is going to be somebody very familiar to us, Scott, and that's George Blaha. George is in his 49th season calling the Detroit Pistons play-by-play. He's got over 50 years calling Michigan State Spartans football. And George is hopefully going to one day be invited to the Naismith Basketball Memorial Hall of Fame to accept the Kurt Gowdy Award. We need to get George recognized for that award. He's had a marvelous career. I know he's not a national figure in the sense of doing CBS, NBC, ESPN, and all that, TNT, but George is a great guy and has had an incredible career. And he influenced and helped many, many young broadcasters along the way as well, I might add. So my 2 cents, I'm going to say, let's get George Blaha into that Springfield Basketball Hall of Fame next season. Hopefully the Kurt Gowdy Excellence Award in Broadcasting.
Yeah, when I was covering the Pistons, George is a great friend. He really is a great friend. Is a great friend. I enjoy working with him. Doesn't have a bad thing to say about anybody. Hope he does get there, but I think, like you said, the only thing that's hindered him from getting there sooner is the lack of a national voice to get him there sooner. But I'm with you all the way, George. All right, JB, go ahead.
So, watching the NFL this last weekend, I come up with a new idea. So during the combine, they give the Wonderlic test to all the prospects, right? And I was thinking, NFL coaches are dumb as blank. Can't say it because I'm not going to curse on here. The Giants this weekend, down 14, score a touchdown, they go for 2. They did the same thing in Pittsburgh. 14 minus 6 is 8. If you get 1, which is an extra point, you're down 7. You repeat that, you tie the game. They were down 14 in both games and went for 2 and didn't get it. You don't have a dynamic offense, so you're not getting 3 yards regularly. Why are you going for 2 when you score the first touchdown and put yourself in a hole again? Secondly, Seattle. Why did they take the field goal in overtime? Put the pressure on the Rams. You know, Nick Sirianni, why don't you run Saquon Barkley a little bit more? He's averaging like 5 to 6 yards a carry every time he touches the ball. He's the best part of your offense. What is wrong with you? And I can go on. Those are just 3 examples. So I demand that every coach, before they get hired in the NFL, has to take a Wonderlic test and all their scores become published, like they do to the prospects. Because they're all idiots, except for Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin.
I don't know. What do you think of Dan Campbell, Joe?
Yeah, he's all right.
Okay.
He's all right, but those are the 2 best in the league.
Yeah, but at least he does push-ups during training camp, right? But you know what? That's one of your best parting shots ever, Joe. I'll tell you, you really put some gusto into that one. Well, last night, I saw a Frank Reynolds sighting on ABC during the election. For those of you that don't know who Frank Reynolds is, he was a one-time host of ABC News Nightline, and he was one of the best news anchors I have ever seen on television. Frank Reynolds is known for getting on his people for not getting it. I don't want it to be first. I want it to be right. Well, you know what? I don't talk about politics, and I'm not going to. But I'm going to say one thing. I don't remember the last time that I stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning to watch something news related. Then again, this was the election. But I will say this, FCC, all things considering, ABC got it right. They waited until everything, and I mean everything was in there before they projected a winner. I'm not going to sit here and sound off on other ones that are on cable. They're not FCC related, but I'm going to tell you this much, Frank Reynolds must be smiling at ABC and the way that these people conducted their behavior, because it was excellent. I don't want it first, get it right. And that get it right, folks, is something that I put in the book, Lessons from the Microphone. I want to thank everybody in this chat room for their excellent participation, from Pensman to Joshua Dorr, Blake, and the rest who participated. You guys are absolutely fantastic. I've always vowed I wouldn't bring politics on, but I never said anything about not praising good news reporting. I think nowadays, one thing that is really important to me as I continue to do more and more podcasts, broadcasts, whatever you want to call them, is this, okay? I don't worry about the results of the game. I want to know about the presentation and how it was delivered. That's what I want to see. When I go to games, yes, the outcome is important about who won and lost, okay? But I want to know exactly what I can do to network. And then in a situation like this, ABC delivered. I was proud of ABC. And many years ago, I got my start at ABC with George Eichhorn, and I was a producer for Sports Talk. ABC, you got it right. I'm proud of you, and I learned an awful lot. And I can't thank you enough for a nice, objective presentation with how you conducted yourself on arguably one of the biggest days for the next 4 years. Anybody else have anything to add?
No?
Okay. All right, Candy, take us home.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book late last year, so it wasn't available really for gift giving. So this year is the year to give it as a gift. Go out and get your copy today. Get many copies for all your friends and family. It's Scott's book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. If you know anybody that wants to get into the business, or you know anybody that likes to read about different stories that Scott loves to tell, go get the book. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple and Google Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also find more writing from Scott, writing from George and JB, and some of my pictures. Go to our YouTube channel. If you see the red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, that means you have not subscribed to us. Please do so. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football, usually. Last night, we switched it and moved it to Monday night. So if you were looking for it last night, we apologize. It was on Monday night. Tonight, Wednesday night's Sports Exchange. We talk all kinds of different things. Preceding to this show was the Motor City Mad Mal show on nofilter.net. Tomorrow night, 7:30, Fire Up Florida, which is our NHL hockey show. Then later that night, 9 o'clock, is Fire Up. You never know what we're going to be talking about. But Scott would say, because I host it, it's the Country Club show.
It really is. It's a great show. Hey, Pensman, we got to get you on that show, man. You'll hit it off good with Ralph Williams, 2 Pittsburgh guys. We'll get you on there. Hopefully at least one, but you have to go through the boss.
If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest or you have show ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you'd like to advertise or sponsor a show, you can call Scott 954-304-4941. If you missed any of it, just hit rewind and watch it all over again. Back to you, Scott.
All right. Well, JB, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
JB_the program on X, Sideline Sports, every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. All over social media, at Sideline Sports 1 on X. And WDJY 99.1 in Atlanta on Wednesday morning, 7 to 8.
You forgot your website, Mr. Ellis. Continue.
Oh, yeah, SidelineSportsNet.com. You know, it's so ingrained in my head and it's so good, I forget about it. See, when you got the one problem solved, you're on to the next. But that's designed by Candy.
Wait a minute. Really? Seriously? It's ingrained in your head and you got it wrong? Really? Seriously? Get it right next week. You have a free shot to promote a website that Candy Emily built from the ground up. I knew I'd get some emotion out of you. Great stuff. Even though I hate you, Stephen A. Smith, but you do give me pointers. Anything else?
That's it.
Oh, I got an emotion out of this guy. This guy's unbelievable. No wonder he's like a brother and a friend of mine, because he knows that I can be animated and he doesn't take this stuff personally, really. Seriously. We have a good time on these shows. We have a good time on every show. Eichhorn, you're next. Put it up there.
Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the air. Get your copy. at the end of my column on the South Florida Tribune website called the Motor City Tribune, you'll see a link there, and you can get a copy of my book. Scott's in the book. JB's not in the book, but the next one you will be in, JB, of course. Broadcasters come and go, but no, friends are forever. And that's the thing that's so important in sports broadcasting and announcing. And I'm so glad, Scott, that you brought up that great man, Frank Reynolds, too. I agree with you. Great recollection and memories of Frank. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can reach me on X or Twitter at SandGSports99. Follow me also at LinkedIn and Instagram. And we also have an appearance with 108 Stitches on Monday nights with Scott and the baseball crew, and this great show, The Sports Exchange, which began, what, Scott? Like 45 years or 44 years ago, whatever it was. Maybe a couple years less, but anyways, a great name for a show. We love it, and it goes back to the days when Scott and I were working together on that show in Detroit.
Yeah, well, Joshua George still is waiting for you to come up with a picture of you really young. He keeps mentioning that to me all the time when we have our little FaceTime call.
Okay.
So you need to find a way to send one to Candy so he can get this guy off my back. He wants to see a young George Eichhorn. And don't worry, JB Ellis made it in my book, and he's headed to the second one. So that's all right. We can't really we'll give you a mulligan on that because you didn't know him back then, so it doesn't really matter.
You should have knew.
Yeah, but so Eichhorn's homework for within the next few days or a week is he has to send us an old picture when you had hair and you were much different, okay? And because that's what these guys want. They want to see a younger version. As far as me, I have my younger version in that book. Muhammad Ali. Of course, everybody's taking a shot at my jaw. Seriously? Really? I had Sugar Ray Leonard, Jake Tony, Chuck Wepner, and Muhammad Ali. See, and I'm still talking out loud, and nothing's going to change. Period. But meanwhile, great job to everybody in the chat. And you know what? On behalf of Candy, JB, and George, we'll see you next Wednesday night. Same time, same station. Take care, everybody. Have an awesome week. Bye now.
Bye.